And so the first semifinal of this tournament, it was like a really big deal. It was Bernard Hopkins against Keith Holmes, which I also was ringside for. That was in the Madison Square Garden Theater. Bernard Hopkins, won very easily. Not a particularly great fight, so he moves into the finals. And a couple of weeks later, you have Tito Trinidad against Joppy in the main arena at Madison Square Garden on pay-per-view, as opposed to Hopkins and Keith Holmes, which is a regular HBO fight. And the hype on this was enormous. Joppy was a good fighter, a good champion, had been in with some solid guys, was rough, was tough, strong. And so a lot of people gave him a chance to win. I definitely gave him a chance to win. And Trinidad and him met. And let me tell you something, TJ, the atmosphere was absolutely electrifying. It's because like every Puerto Rican in New York turned out for the fight. There was 9 William Joppy fans and, 16,000 Puerto Rican or Trinidad fans. And I said the story before. It's in my top 2 or 3 or 4 all-time atmospheres I've ever been in. I can still, as we talk about, hear the air horns and the rafters going off. I've told the story about the flags. I've told the story about going to the arena early because I wanted to buy my programs and posters and bring them back. I was staying in a hotel across the street from the Garden and put them in my room so I didn't have them at ringside getting all screwed up.
So I went over getting taken. You don't want that to happen either.
Or stomped on or messed up, whatever. So I went and I got all my merch and I went back to my room, dropped it off, and then walked back across the street to go to the arena for the undercard. This is like late afternoon because Don King would have these crazy long shows. And I got as my witness, there were cars parked on 7th Avenue right in front of Madison Square Garden, right where the train station is, also Penn Station. And they were tailgating. They had the Felix Trinidad flags like on the cars. They were drinking their drinks out of like the, in the paper bags. And the cops were looking the other way, and they were sitting on like chairs in this, like right off the street and off the curb. And it's one thing to tailgate and you're in a stadium, in a parking lot at a football game or wherever you're at. They're tailgating on 7th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. It was the craziest shit I've ever seen.
It's a little different than a Saturday afternoon in the parking lots of Bryant Denny Stadium, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, for Alabama against Tennessee. Not the same setting. No.
And Tito Trinidad went in there and absolutely destroyed William Joppy. Dropped him in the first round, dropped him in the 4th round, dropped him in the 5th round, and ended the fight. And the crowd, like I said, was all Puerto Rican. And the only thing, I've talked to many people who've had experiences at Madison Square Garden and big fights, and they compare Trinidad and Joppy to the only other fight they say matched that sort of electricity was the night in the early 80s when Roberto Duran headlined at the Garden, and he defeated Davey Boy Moore to win the junior middleweight title in a fight that he was not really so much expected to be the winner on, and just people went absolutely lunatic. And the Joppy and Trinidad was like that. And now you'd say, like, because Trinidad was not a big star, but it was just the love for Trinidad, the passion. He was moving up in weight. He was winning a title in his 3rd weight class. It was huge, and it's as memorable as an experience as I have ever had at a boxing match ever. It is, and I've been at numerous fights at Madison Square Garden. I've covered virtually every single fight that's taken place in the MSG main arena since 2000, and that's the best atmosphere of all. And that includes having covered fights with Anthony Joshua against Andy Ruiz, and having covered other Felix Trinidad fights, having covered virtually every one of Miguel Cotto's fights that have taken place there, including the rematch with Antonio Margarito. And those are all great atmospheres, but this stands alone.